Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm honored and excited to have on Anna Rósa Róbertsdóttir. Welcome to the show, Anna Rósa.
Thank you, Mason.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
It's nice to catch up. You and I were chatting pre-call that last time we talked was probably about 12-ish years ago at the International Herb Symposium. So it'll be fantastic to catch up with you.
It's something like that about 12 years ago. It's about time we talked again, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Time flies when you're an herbalist, and I know you've been an herbalist for over 3 decades now.
Yeah.
And I've in prep for the show, I actually listened to 2 podcast episodes with you, which I highly recommend. The Holistic Herbalism podcast with Katja Swift and Rin Madura. You were on that show along with Herbalist Radio with Tara and John Gallagher. So. Or Tara Ruth and John Gallagher. So that was a lot of fun kind of learning about all this amazing work you're up to. But I would like to kind of take it back a little bit. As I said, you've been an herbalist for 30 years. And I've heard you say in those shows that herbalism is a calling. And I would just love for you to take it back and just tell us what that feeling was like, or how was herbalism a calling for you, if there's any stories associated with that.
Yeah, it was actually, well, for me, I'm not trying to say that herbalists is a calling for everyone, but that's how it was for me. And so it was extremely simple. I was, I think I was 21, finished college, didn't have a clue what to do in life, and nobody was bothered because this is a long time ago. There was no pressure that you had to go to university or do anything. So I was just working. And one day I read this article in the newspaper about herbalism and that you could actually study it in England. And that was it. I knew immediately that I wanted to be a herbalist. I had never thought about it before at all. And I think it was in 4 months I was in England studying, something like that. Wow. It was just like an immediate recognition that this was my life calling. There's no question about it. So I'm very lucky in that sense compared to many that I knew right away that this was meant to be.
And is it true that you're one of 3 herbalists in Iceland?
Might be 4 now, I'm not quite. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that is true. There are Iceland is a country of only 350,000 people. Bear that in mind. We are not millions, we are in hundreds of thousands. So very small.
That's awesome. Well, I want to spend the bulk of the show. We're going to have to do another round where we dive deeper into your background because I'm definitely fascinated by that. But we really want to talk a lot about the work that you're doing in Kurdistan, Iraq. Did I say that correctly? Kurdistan?
Yeah, I think you did. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So not only were you called to be an herbalist all those years ago, but it sounds like you were also incredibly called to do this work with the women, these women refugees in Kurdistan, Iraq. And can you tell us about the inspiration behind this project you got going on?
Yeah, it's actually the same thing that I kind of, actually it happened to be totally true, actually just on Instagram of all things, which is frivolous to people. But for me, newspaper first, then Instagram doesn't really matter where I get my callings, apparently.
Totally.
And so I was following this photographer who was only photographing refugees. And it was a totally different take to look at beautiful photographs in the little paragraphs he wrote than from the general news. And that's how I really started to get interested in the refugee crisis. And so that went on for a while until I finally thought that, if he can do this, and he is running an organization helping refugees as well. And so I just thought, well, if he can do it, then I can too, basically. And it wasn't more complicated than that. However, this process took about 5 years. Because I had to take quite a time to convince myself that this was an okay thing to do. It was very odd to get a calling to start working with refugees when you had no connection at all anywhere. Right. And I hadn't been working with them in Iceland or anything like that. So I really had to sort of sit with that for a long time myself, that it was an okay thing to, and also I was kind of trying to, this will leave, this will go. It never did. And so eventually I had to take it seriously. And so I hooked up with this great organization in Kurdistan and went there to check it out before I then set up my charity, because I didn't want to set up a charity if I wasn't sure that it was welcome and they were interested and so forth. So it was quite a preparation in that sense, but they were very keen on learning, and I had a great time, and I've been back a second time as well now. So, and there is teaching going on at the same time. While I'm not there, somebody else is teaching, and so it's the snowball just rolled very quickly, basically.
Got a lot of questions for you. How long did you sit on this feeling that you had from the idea to actually moving forward with it?
It was probably, I would say, about 3 or 4 years, maybe.
Wow.
And in the meantime, I read books on research on altruism, for example, because it is, and I didn't know anything about it. So I actually went deep into reading about it, kind of to be sure that I wasn't just doing this out of some egotistical reason. I think that's kind of, and it never left and it never went away. So I just kept on reading and kind of preparing myself. And then I started discussing it a little bit with people. And most people thought it was just, I mean, it was not even possible to discuss it with people because they thought it was such a utterly weird idea. Here in
Totally.
Iceland. Until I found humanitarian people I knew and started this. And then the people who are actually on the board with me now in the charity, who are former colleagues, not best friends. I didn't want that. I wanted separate people who were not my good friends, but very professional and good people to keep me in check, basically. And so they were both extremely enthusiastic and didn't think this was weird at all. And that sort of kind of secured it for me, that I had the backing of two very normal, good people, professional people in the society who are not weird like me, basically. And that I needed that kind of security to actually go forward with it. And they are on the board with me and are doing fabulous. It's not just me, it's them too, you know. And so I'm very lucky in having very good people with me in this. And you need that when you start to do work like this, I think.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. I love how intelligently you're handling this and the way you're thinking about it too. The whole discussion about not being egotistical about the altruism that we do is just so fascinating to me. I remember when I was going through rough times in my youth, I read that, you know, volunteering and helping out around town is beneficial for mental health. And so it was funny or felt kind of ironic that I was being selfish by being selfless. And it's really neat that you kind of went through that. And I just love how you're handling all this. I think the audience would be curious to hear more specifics about the work that you're doing with these refugees. But kind of before we even get to that, I'm just going to plead ignorance. Can you kind of paint a picture of the scene in Iraq and tell us like why the work you're doing is important, and then kind of move forward with talk about like details about the project?
Right. So I'm working with women in the refugee camps. There are, I think, about 20 refugee camps there, and those are combined of women, both Syrian refugees from the war situation there, and also internally displaced refugees from the Yazidi community in Iraq itself, which there was a genocide by ISIS, I think 10 years ago now. So there are those two different, and then others as well, of course, but those are the major groups I'm teaching. And so I'm teaching in 3 of the camps out of 20. Wow. And it's a mixture of both Yazidis and Syrian in one, and they're quite different groups as well. And so I do workshops for there are about 15, 20 women, often quite a lot of children as well attending. Like small children, because that's how it happens. And then we are we let the women, well, when I went the first time, I started just teaching how to make an ointment because I thought that's the easiest thing to do. And that's kind of, it's so versatile what you can do with it. And they have, for example, a lot of gas burns because everything is cooked on gas, and burns from gas are hideous. And so all kinds of things like that. And so I asked them again and again, what do you need? And let them decide how I took it forward the next time I went there. And so now we have been teaching ointment. There has been joint oil for pain, which has been extremely popular, more popular than I thought it would be, actually. And I did it in a very different way than I don't have essential oils to work with, so I had to do it totally differently. So that all of it is totally differently to what I do generally, because I don't have the resources as I usually do. I only work with the herbs I can get there. So they can easily go and get it themselves. It wouldn't do that I would bring something over from Iceland and then they can't access it. That's just not on. It has to be totally sustainable. And and then we have been doing workshops on hair oil as well. Hair is very important to them. So it's the beauty aspect of it as well, which we're asked about a lot. Sometimes I've done some face things too, like face gel from aloe vera, and cough syrup. Yeah, I think those are the major the majority I've been teaching, actually, and then lots of teas. So what happens, I can't run a clinic. I'm forbidden to do that. And so, of course, what happens is that all the time they have ailments and ask me in the middle of the course, in the workshop, and I basically tell them recipes all the time. Because I maintain that, yes, it sounds a bit maybe not a good thing to do because you haven't taken your case history, you don't know the cases, but the way I view it is, this is definitely better than having nothing. That's as simple as that. And I'm working with herbs like chamomile and nettle, and you can't really go wrong with them either. It's kind of almost impossible. You see what I mean? So
Totally.
In that sense, it's quite safe. And I make sure to tell them if they're on blood pressure medicine, don't stop it, that kind of thing, But so I sort of, under the table, run a little clinic, basically. Because that's, of course, what they need. There isn't a medical support there. I mean, that's the other thing. They don't have medical support, just general doctors. I mean, there are some, and I don't think they're very good because you don't earn much money working in refugee camps, It's not a fashionable thing to do there, so far as I know. So they are in dire situation. And also, these women don't have anything at all. There are no handouts from organization. They're not earning anything. So this is a way. And I know at least of one woman who is now selling hair oil and actually selling them. And I'm keeping in contact with her on Instagram, that kind of thing. And she's doing a good job advertising on Instagram within the refugee camps.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's the other idea, is that to make them be more independent, so they can actually, yes, we distribute the products, and I think for 2023 I think about 540 products we distributed within the workshops, but they can also go and make a business out of it themselves if they want to. So that's the whole idea. There's some way of getting income, which they literally do not have at all. I mean, it's mostly men who work, and most of them, the men are dead. That's the other thing. They don't have husbands anymore, and they have maybe 7 children without husbands and no way of getting food. And so they rely on family and the neighbors. That's how it works, literally. Imagine that. Despite all the trauma you've gone through and the whole thing,
Yeah.
It's like absolutely unbelievable. And we are so privileged, we can't even think. I mean, it's impossible to actually try to put yourself into their shoes. And on top of everything, they have no way of earning income.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the herbal entrepreneur aspect of it. When you were first talking, I was like, oh, okay. It's a lot about self-care and helping your community with the herbs. But then I really love that you're empowering these women to actually start businesses to help provide more income to their families and all that. That's just incredible work, Anna. Well, tell us about maybe one of like your first travel there. did you hang out in the refugee camp with them, and what was your experience like?
Yeah, in one of the camps, they always cook lunch. For me, they're absolutely gorgeous and such a good lunch too, you know. So that has become a tradition. They always, the Yazidi women cook lunch for me. And then also in the same camp, I've been invited to tent to visit some of the participants, which has been fabulous. And they're very humorous and great hosts. I don't think I've had and I've traveled a lot. I don't think in any country I've traveled I've had as much hospitality as I've had in Kurdistan. I mean, it's seriously hospitable, and the people are so nice.
That's cool.
And the same in the refugee camps. It doesn't matter where you go. Everybody is extremely nice, and you feel totally safe. As opposed to what everyone thinks, that I'm so unsafe there. That is not true. And people have really worried my family and so forth. And people just have this image that you can't. The thing is, I wouldn't go alone to Iraq itself, but Kurdistan is much safer. So if you Google, are you safe to go to Iraq? No, you are actually not.
Okay.
But Kurdistan, you are safe. And I feel as safe there as I do in Reykjavik in Iceland. I don't feel much difference. And I can really have a good touch for that kind of thing, you know, because I've traveled a lot. So, but you're perfectly safe walking in the streets and talking to everyone, whatever, you know. So, and that makes it very different too, you know. Yeah. It matters.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this later on, but we'll just talk about it now since you alluded to it. But I was kind of hoping you could tell us about, and correct me if I'm saying their names incorrectly, on your about page, there's Iman, E-M-A-N, and then Bashar.
Bashar, yeah.
Can you tell us about Iman and Bashar and how they're, you know, helping you navigate the refugee camp and all that?
I was extremely lucky the first time I came to Kurdistan that Iman was my translator. So she is a young woman from Duhok. She's not a refugee, but from the next town, and has a university education in English. So hence she's a translator. And then it transpired that she was very interested in what I was doing as well. So she started actually studying herbal medicine, and she's studying almost full time now. I mean, well, not maybe full time, but she's studying. She's been very diligent in studying ever since. And this is a year ago we started. And so I had the luck of her being enthusiastic. And so the next time I came, I decided to hire her again as a translator, of course. And it kind of evolved very quickly that I just had to hire her as a teacher. She was very independent, very good. She was also used to working in the refugee camp. She had a great experience with the organization already for 2 years. And so I just hired her as a teacher. And so while I'm not there, she has been continuing teaching, which has made all the difference, of course. We can teach a lot more, and she can follow it up better and things like that. Also, we have WhatsApp groups. So the women are very much on WhatsApp. Everybody has phones. So we have 3 WhatsApp groups. And so they can ask questions outside of the workshop. And if they have forgotten the recipe, we can put it there. And so we are just basically streaming online whenever they need. We didn't put up a website. We just did WhatsApp group because that's what they wanted. That's what they use, and it's the easiest form and what they recognize. So we are keeping it very much alive in between lessons as well. And Bashar is the driver, so we have to have a driver. There is no infrastructure in public driving in Kurdistan. Like there are no buses, nothing like that, and you can't trust the normal taxis just like that. That's not advisable, I was told. So you have to hire a driver, and so he's this great driver we have to get to the camps because that's the only way we can get there, and it has to be safe for her as a young woman as well. So, and he has gone through all kinds of safety rigmaroles and teaching. So it's a specific thing, basically, for safety. And the roads are not safe there either.
What's that?
The roads are not so safe in Kurdistan either.
Gotcha. Good to have Bashar around for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know part of your fundraising efforts based on your website is to help fund Iman and Bashar. Can you tell folks who are interested in helping support the project how they can do that?
Well, they can easily just go on the website helpingherbs.com, .org, not com, definitely not com, .org for organization. And What would be most helpful would be monthly payments, just any small thing you can afford, because it's so difficult not to know anything in terms of going forward. But if we have a lot of small ones, we actually know a little bit what we will have every month or more likely. So that is what I would most appreciate without a question. It would be absolutely fabulous if Herbalist came together and supported that way. And already, of course, some are, but I would love to have some more, definitely.
Well, I saw you also had like sponsors. I want to say I saw Commonwealth Herbs on there, and
Yes.
Herbs with Rosalie is on there as well. Are these your monthly sponsors or?
No, they are corporate sponsors.
Oh,
so they're
corporate
not
sponsors.
Yes, they are corporate sponsors, all three of them. So yes, and there's a trust fund in England. So it's coming together a little bit. The herbal community is definitely behind this, and I'm very lucky with that.
Well, I feel like this is a good time also to plug your Icelandic herbs, the Healing Power of Icelandic Herbs course. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how it helps support the project?
Yeah, so I take the whole whole profit of the online course goes to Iraq. So what I do is to support this, because of course I don't have enough donations so far, is that I use my savings. I have specific savings for this, but they will probably finish this year at some point. So I use my savings, and then the profit from the companies, my skincare company I run in Iceland, a part of that profit goes towards Iraq as well. And then out of the online course, the whole profit goes. And I give for you, I'm giving 30% discount on it as well. And so it's a course on Icelandic herbs. Those are the 14 Icelandic herbs I have used the most for the last 30 years. So I'm a forager as well. I pick everything myself, and I've done for 30 years. So I have a lot of tips on how to pick and why and so forth. And I have specific videos on me picking. So if you don't know anything, it really shows you how to do it. But also it is for quite advanced students as well, because I'm giving information on all levels, I would say. It's definitely done for those who don't know anything. But the thing is, the Icelandic herbs, they're all in America as well. They're all in the North America and in the States and Canada. So it's not like it's so specific that you can only find them here.
Sure. Yeah. I do want to talk more. It sounded like I was wrapping up the show right there with talking about the support, but I just wanted to get that in there. But yeah, I remember on the Herb Mentor Radio, you were talking about all the different ways you use chamomile and nettle. And I was reading this quote from David Winston earlier about your course. And it says, that is what makes Icelandic herbal medicine so fascinating. From her, I learned more about Angelica than I ever knew. While you will not learn a huge number of plants in this well thought out video class, you will learn a great deal about 14 important plants. So I just love the resourcefulness that you bring to the course. So yeah, dear listener, if you'd like to purchase the course, help support the work that Anna Rósa is doing, like she said, 30% off discount. You could use coupon code HerbRally. How long do you want to make that available? Like a month or two after?
Something month, yeah. We can have it available for a month. Yeah.
All right. So when this,
it's up to you.
All right. We'll make it. We'll make a HerbRally. Use coupon code HerbRally at checkout. You'll get 30% off 2 months after we actually release this episode. So thank you for that discount, Anna.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Well, let's keep chatting more about the organization. Is it called a nonprofit? Or is it a charity? Is that what you call it?
It's well, I don't actually know the difference between it. It's the same word in Iceland. We only have one type of it. So I call it, and it's a registered charity by law and authorities here. So I think it would be called a charity rather than nonprofit because of that.
Gotcha.
So completely transparent, authorized, registered, whatever you call it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as I was doing research for the charity, some questions came up, and one of them was, can you tell us the difference between helping herbs, herbal sisters, and lotus flower?
Right. Okay. So Helping Herbs is the charity I started here in Iceland, the registered charity I mentioned. Herbal Sisters is the name of the project within Lotus Sisters. So Lotus Sister is the local organization in Kurdistan I'm working with. I cannot work independently. That's not allowed. And so I collaborate with them, and they have been very generously helping me with that. And we call the project Herbal Sisters. They also have many other projects, and they're all sisters. They have like boxing sisters, yoga sisters, and so forth. So it fits. Herbal Sisters was just very nice fit into what they were doing already. And they're doing fabulous works and have been doing for the last, I think, 10 years or something in the camps. And so I was just very lucky that I could work with such an experienced organization already.
So are there sisters that are both boxing and herbal at the same time?
Yeah, that you can be all
That's awesome.
And they're like jam sisters making jam, and they come learn how to make hair oil and so forth. Yes, absolutely.
That's so cool.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard you speak about part of your role is helping build confidence in the women. Like I've heard you say like that's your main role actually. And how do you help build confidence? Whether that's just like personal confidence, or is it like learn confidence in being an herbalist, or how do you view that?
I think, well, I've been teaching for a long time, and usually when you teach, you are also teaching from your own experience. And I have the experience of being 30 years ago, not having confidence in this and that and so forth. And then you learn by years, but when you mature and so forth. So that is partly what you do. But what I do is that I come in there and I have the authority. I have been working for so long. And I can just say to them, you can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it too. So I just keep on telling them. And one of the things, what happens with the Yazidi group that I taught, some of them, they were absolutely fabulous in March. And then I came back again and I was teaching different workshops, and the same women were there. And I was asking them, haven't you tried doing the ointment again? And they just looked at me and thought, no, we don't think we can do it as well as you can. And so that was an opportunity to keep on teaching them and go through it again. And so it's an iteration. It's like you repeat things again and again until the confidence is there. And it just like, you just tell them that you can do it. Like you tell them once and then you tell them again, and then they maybe believe you, or maybe the fifth time. Do you see what I mean? And then because we have the WhatsApp groups, that helps as well. We can also just tell them again there, and you forgot that, that's okay. It's here again, that kind of. And a lot of the women have no formal education at all. They have not been allowed to study. So it is really a chore, and maybe they have 3 kids with them as well. So it's not a simple thing. Sure. And to have the attention to sit and so forth. So we try to incorporate a lot of tea drinking and sort of play around with things. We are, of course, cooking oil and doing things at the same time, but we try to keep it a bit lively so they don't get bored, because that's an easy factor if I'm just staying, black pepper does this and that, but how do you use it? That's the other factor. They are teaching me as well, of course. Some of them have great knowledge of herbs. Others don't have any knowledge. So I always look for that. And that also gives you confidence. If, for example, the Syrian women are very used to using rosemary, and so they got my information, and I was very grateful to get their information. And so we compiled it, and that gives them confidence too, you know. Plus, it's a great thing for me, you know.
Yeah.
But that is how you build confidences too, that somebody from outside comes and tells them, a woman as well, that I've been doing it for 30 years. It really works. Try it. Like, I don't need scientific research and doctors to tell me that this rosemary will work in that pain. I've been seeing it for 30 years. You try it. So it's that kind of thing. And then they believe it. And that's how herbalists learn, you know. More than I mean, you started out, you didn't really believe it, but when you've had 30 years experience, you know,
then I don't really believe it.
Yeah, and you don't need to prove yourself in any ways, because you just need it again and again and again. All herbalists who have worked clinically like I have can say this, I would think. Otherwise, you wouldn't be working for 30 years. You would have given up a long time ago, you know. Totally. But when you get testimonials every day, you have no problem believing and then giving the confidence forward, you know. I think that's what I'm doing.
I still love it when herbs surprise me, which does happen on occasion for sure. But can you share any of the tidbits about rosemary that woman shared with you? or if you recall.
I don't think I remember it anymore.
Oh, that's all right.
It was something though. I wrote it down. I haven't
Yeah.
got that good memory. I should take some rosemary.
Yeah, for remembrance.
I've forgotten it right now. I just remembered that it was like that, you know.
Well, I put you on the spot. That wasn't very
Yeah,
fair
you did.
of me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've completely forgotten it now. But there is always an interaction like that, though. There might be just a little bit something. And then I'm learning, for example, I'm doing the pain oil, and I'm used to doing a popular pain oil here I've been selling for a long time in Iceland. It's really, really works really well, and it's with essential oils and some base oil. I don't have that. And so I'm boiling, like infusing rosemary and ginger and cloves and something. And I just made that up. And it works absolutely wonderful, much better than I thought it would. Do you see what I mean? So it's like, that is such a nice discovery. Like I'm doing this because that's the only option I have. And then you figure out, actually, that really works too, because the women keep on telling me again and again success stories with their pain. And so it's fabulous as a herbalist to be discovering this 30 years later, like, yeah, you could easily do it that way. Of course, you believe it, but you just haven't done it. And to hear them say it again and again, it's absolutely fun. And those are simple kitchen things. That's the thing. And if I come back to what we were discussing earlier about David Winston saying that working with so few herbs, and now he's a guy who works with a lot of herbs, I know that, we've discussed it, but that has also been my luck, if I could say that I was so used to working with few herbs and really knowing the herbs well, because that comes in very good stand working now in Iraq. Because I have a problem working with 5 herbs or 10 herbs. I don't need 100 herbs at all. I mean, nettle and chamomile, they do most things. Believe me, they do. So it's always that herbal is so often think that you really have to have so many herbs for specific things. That is simply, yes, that's fabulous, but it's simply not true half of the time, if not all the time. Because when you only have little, you just make it work, and it actually does.
Herbs work.
And you have no option about it anymore, because you only recognize those 5 herbs in the market. That's the other thing. I come from Iceland, and I don't recognize half of the herbs you would in the States. So I'm like absolutely awful in the market. I don't know anything. Yeah. So I just pick the chamomile and nettle and those few I really recognize, and the spices, you know. And you work with it, and it really just works over and over again.
So that rosemary you're using, is that like growing on a plant, or are you actually getting this from the market? Or
I'm getting from the markets. Yeah. So it's twofold. There are some very old women who are picking themselves or their family, and they are selling. There are like 5 of them together. So I try to buy from them as much as I can. And then there are all the other shops in the market, mainly selling herbs imported from Turkey, which is the next country. So I'm mixing this together. That's mainly spices, but the women are the ones I try to, because I'm also supporting them, you know. Rather than the guys selling from Turkey. I prefer supporting women, you know.
Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah.
Can you speak about...
Sorry, go on.
No, you go for it, Anna. Sorry.
No, it's just local herbs and mixed together with some imported as well.
Can you tell us about, because I've heard you say on the Herb Mentor podcast, as I talked about earlier, you say all the different ways you use chamomile and nettle, and you wouldn't believe how many of the different ways. I would love to hear the follow-up to that. What are some of the many different ways you're using chamomile and nettle?
Right. Okay. So any kind of inflammation. Now I'm talking internal, like this is like I'm just thinking of the recipes I've been giving women. And bear in mind it has to be in teas, because I can't do tinctures because they are often Muslims, and so they can't take alcohol internally. That's the other thing. So I'm back to work, but I've always worked a lot with tea, so I'm good with that. But yes, they're very anti-inflammatory, both of them. So all the arthritic conditions and the internal inflammation. Nettle there's a lot of blood sugar problems there as anywhere else, but maybe even much more there because sugar is so cheap. So sugar and cooking oil and flour, those are the main staples, you know. And so there are a lot of diabetes problems there as well as in States and Iceland, wherever we go now. And so nettle will be good for that. And chamomile, add that to the mix with the turmeric and ginger, whatever I'm doing, But yeah, and then there's the blood pressure. I get a lot of question about that too. Nettle again, chamomile again. Sleeping, then is chamomile. Nettle, not so much, but you can just throw it in and it will do good things anyway.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it a little bit. Any kind of female complaints, and I get a lot of those, like to do with the period or the menopause, and then they're excellent, both nettle and chamomile. Bones, I can think of so many things. Hair, want it for the hair. Nettle for the dark hair, chamomile for the blonde hair. So it's endless, and for the kids, of course, a lot for the kids, chamomile for the kids, endlessly. All the stomach aches, and that's stomach complaints, lots of them too, because it's not quality food quite often. It's something very cheap, lots of bread, and so people not tolerating that, then chamomile and nettle will definitely do the job too. But I add spices to the mix too. There are always some spices around, so I use ginger a lot. It's easily available.
You mentioned turmeric too?
Yes, turmeric powder. Nice. Not fresh, but powder, yes. So I've dispensed that a lot, along with just stirring it in water, just taking it like that. And I'm doing the most simplistic ways I can think of, basically. That's the only way to do it. And it has to be cheap too. That's the other thing. It has to be available cheap. And turmeric powder, even though it's not good quality, it will still do something.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to bring up the whole, everything you do is just so resourceful. And I really admire that. And I really love this term, frugal nutrition, trying to eat healthy foods on a budget. And part of that is not being dogmatic, thinking everything has to be like the utmost quality, organic, or you're doing it all wrong, Yes. And I really love promoting, like, just do the best you can with what you have. And I was just kind of hoping you could speak a little bit about, like, say, the fact that you're making salves out of vegetable oil and just like not being so, what I'm trying to say? Like, I would love to hear you speak about the resourcefulness and the way that you're teaching these women.
Yeah, not being too uptight about it, basically.
So
the thing is, here in Iceland, I make my Bliss Healing Balm with extra virgin organic olive oil because I prefer that, and it's fabulous. Then I go to Iraq and I make it with corn oil. It's still fabulous. And I actually used to do that in the beginning when I was still just dealing with patients, but not running a skincare company. Then I was just using the cheap veg oil in the beginning because it simply hadn't got to the stage that people were that aware. And it was not easily available here either then. So I'm a bit back to the beginnings by doing this, but it's always a question. You have to meet people where they are. And I've been doing this with patients for 30 years too, You get somebody in front of you who is old, I had this guy coming into my shop the other day, and he was, I eat a lot of salads, and he was eating a lot of, what are they called, those salads with a lot of mayonnaise in them, He was absolutely convinced he was eating a lot of good salads, and they were absolutely terrible. But you have to meet him there, so cut that out and get some sweet potato rather, that kind of thing. So you have to keep things very simple with a lot of people. And so I think that is also my strength. I'm so used to finding the level where people are at. There is no way I would have told that guy, you have to start buying everything organic, which is hard, which is very hard here in Iceland anyway,
Right.
It's not like in the States. So that's the other thing I'm dealing with here. It's the same in Iraq, These are the constrictions you have, work with it. That's really what I'm doing all the time, and I'm used to it. So it's also my nature. I love having everything organic, and I buy quality stuff because I can,
Yeah, right.
But if I can't, then you don't.
Right.
Don't major in the minors or whatever. Don't focus on the things which are not the most important. It's the most important to have a good ointment. Then it really doesn't matter if it's organic olive oil or not, because the ointment will work with the herbs, with just some shitty oil,
Yeah, exactly. Very well said.
We go into it, yes. So that's the whole, and you really just have to drop that attitude that everything has to be. You really cannot do that job if you have that kind of attitude. You cannot go into refugee camps and think that you can just get things the way you want and run the workshop the way on schedule and like you want. That doesn't work like that either, because the kids are running around and they are 1 hour late. That's normal, you know. So you adjust. You have to flex and be very flexible, basically.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to hear. So, awesome. Well, I would love to hear what your hopes and dreams are for helping herbs. Like, where do you see this in, say, 5 years, 10 years, something like that?
I would actually like to be able to run clinics. That is my dreams, because that is what is most needed. It's more needed than teaching workshop. I just go along with the works because that's the only thing I can do at the moment. I would also like to go to more countries. I mean, there are also big refugee camps in close countries as well. So that I would like to see that happening within the next 10 years. Because for me, this is my calling now. It has been like, I'm middle age. So this has been like the change in my life, literally. And so I hope I can continue just until I'm very old and die. I can continue doing this kind of work, because that's what I'm called for now. I'm kind of not closing down in Iceland, but I'm restricting what I do, because I want to just spend my time on this more than anything, you know. I've already been doing it for 30 years in Iceland. That's enough.
Yeah, right. You want to share the wealth.
Yeah, and then also I will retire in not such a long time, and it will be more easy for me to actually do it when I'm retired, because I have no intention of stopping working, you know.
Right.
At least 95. I think that would be a good age to stop this.
That's perfect age. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Absolutely.
I know. But yeah, this work will never stop. That's the sad thing about it. Right. So if you can do your bit, whatever it is, and this is what I know how to do, you know, that's how it came about. This is my experience, and this is what I can do to try to relieve something with all the horrible situation in the world. And you have to find what you can do, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to hear more about the team helping you with this work. But in addition to that, let's say someone wanted to help out, not just monetarily, but actually help, say, in Iraq. Do you take on volunteers of that sort?
Not at the moment, no. Okay. That would be too complicated. I've discussed this with the organization. It's too complicated in terms of regulations at the moment. But also I don't think I will see it just like that, because that is a highly complicated thing to do. And then you have to oversee, and that's not my personality really, that kind of thing, you know. And also I think what I would rather aim for is having people like Iman to educate local women to teach instead of me, rather than getting all the fabulous herbalists I know to come over, because then you always have to have a translator. It's all kinds of complication, and also it's really difficult if you don't have that kind of mentality. It's really a hard thing to do, and to get someone to just stay for 2 weeks or something, that doesn't work either. You see what I mean? So I think it's much more sustainable if you can find people you can teach. And I mean, I would also like to have like a more like I've discussed that with Iman, to have a sustainable school, like where we can teach all kinds of things, you know. But clinic would be my priority if I could. And maybe I can do that in other countries. I don't know that yet. I will check it out, definitely.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on and, you know, follow along what Anna Rósa's up to. You did mention, that'd be amazing. You mentioned Iman, and I meant to ask this earlier. I just forgot. If you're allowed to share, what online herb school is she taking?
Oh, with Commonwealth. They have been
that's awesome.
Yes, they have been so generous. And also, cool. Actually, there have been some refugees women. I haven't checked in with them recently how they're getting on. But if they have the ability in the refugees, if they speak enough English, they can also attend the school with the Commonwealth. So I think at least 5 of them applied. I just don't know how it's going at the moment. And even one of them didn't speak English, but she was going to get her brother to translate. So it's just like you're actually giving opportunities to study as well with such a good school. And that's invaluable. And Iman is finding it absolutely invaluable to be able to do that free of charge. You know, they are very generous with what they are doing.
Shout out Katja Swift and Rin Madura. That's the Commonwealth Herb
Absolutely,
School based in the Boston area. Fun fact, Anna Rosa, I don't know if you know this, but Katja and Rin did the very first episode of the HerbRally podcast way back in 2017. So
I didn't know that. How nice.
they've been very generous to HerbRally as well over the years. So yeah, big shout out to them. They were also on the Herbalist Hour, I want to say 20 episodes ago. So sweet. Well, let's you got time for a few more questions?
Oh, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, just kind of a couple funsies questions. Do you have any favorite dishes, favorite foods that you were served in Iraq?
Yeah, I just don't know the names of them.
Okay.
So I have had the incredible fortune to visit Iman's family, who are a traditional Muslim family, and her mother is a gorgeous cook. And I will get to sit there on the floor with them and watch them cook for hours, and it's just like it is so good. And yeah, I've been there I think 3 times to eat now, and it's just like cooked meal, lentil soup, very good, for example, and then there's some meat stuffed with rice. I don't necessarily know what it is, but it's so good. Excellent salads as well, and yeah, so they have a lot of lamb dishes, and I like lamb and rice, that kind of thing, So it's a good food culture. I mean, you're in food heaven there, definitely, and I like eating. I'm into eating. So
Same.
Simple. I think all herbalists are like that. Simple food cooked at home is what, and also what I've had in the camps. And that was maybe somebody baking a chicken and making some rice. And it's absolutely something very specific, very good about it. So simple, but they do something, I don't know what, and it's so good. And then they make those extremely thin breads. It's not necessarily a pita flatbread. It's thinner than that even. It's a different thing, And then they make sure that I have some extra to take home with me because they are so sweet, and they're just such caring people, yeah, I don't generally eat bread, but when I go to Kurdistan, you have to have the bread, for example.
That's right. Yeah. So I was looking at your Instagram page. By the way, what's your @? Is it at Anna Rosa Skincare?
Yes, that's my company's name, but it's at Helping Herbalist is the
okay.
for the Helping Herbs, Helping Herbalist.
Yeah, I want to say it was on your skincare one. I was seeing you be served some food. Yeah, like that food just looked incredible.
It's on the skincare. Yes.
I had to ask about that.
Yeah.
So we'll leave links to both Instagram and, of course, all the other links in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description. Were there any plant allies that you met that you weren't super familiar with that you met in Iraq that you kind of became fond of?
There are some. It just doesn't. I don't pull it into my mind right away. But I think there are definitely some. Well, of course, I'm just using some of them more, like rosemary, for example. But I was working with rosemary before. It doesn't come in directly, but I think, yes, what is it called? Sumac, for example.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I wasn't used to, but this would just be because I'm in Iceland, you would be familiar with a lot of them of course, satari. That's the other thing. Satari is specific there. It's quite similar to oregano.
Oh.
So there is a spice mix, which is very famous in all of the Middle East countries called satari, and the herb in it is, I would say, the sister to oregano, but it's not oregano. It's quite different. And so I was experimenting making acne remedy with that. And last time I heard it was working very well externally for acne. So
wow.
That was definitely, and that was just a hunch I had because oregano, I don't even use oregano for acne, but it was just something about it, also very commonly available. And it proved to be right. Those we have tested it on, it was absolutely working. So if you can get hold of satari, it works for acne. But
that's cool.
So do many other plants, of course.
Sure.
Yes, that would be a plant ally. I plan to work a lot more with that because it's so specific to the area and so well known, and everybody has it for cooking. That's the other thing.
Awesome. Well, maybe just kind of a couple more questions. So you've been doing this for 30 years. Let's say you're talking to a budding herbalist who wants to make this their life path as well. Do you have any advice for the budding herbalist?
Well, you have to have a lot of confidence.
Mm.
I mean, I, for example, was working illegally in Iceland for the first 15 years, as in completely illegally. So you had to have quite confidence, and also illegal alcohol, because I do everything legal now, but
Right.
I had quite some confidence. So I can say it actually. But for 15 years, it was, you had to have a lot of confidence. So you really have to learn the business side of it. So I advise on that, because you will not survive without that nowadays.
Yeah.
You have to be good in social media and business. You're not going to make it otherwise. So I would definitely do some kind of business courses as well. I happen to have a business degree as well. So but something I did later. Yeah, and that's very helpful. But don't give up. Just be very resilient. If you feel this is absolutely your calling, just never give up. Absolutely not. I never have. Just need to enter my head, because it's such a thing for me, you know. But also, it's never been easy. I've never been like everything goes easily. I mean, if you're running a business, you do like 1,000 mistakes, and then you get over it and do the next one, and you just stand up again and again and again. And you think this will work fabulously. It doesn't. Then you do something else. And this is continuous. This hasn't stopped. I mean, I've been running this business now for 15 years. And so this is not something that you can just lay back and things work. Even though I'm extremely well known in Iceland and so forth, everybody knows me and all of that, and like easily in the media, still you have to really do the work all the time. And
great advice.
If you don't like something, outsource that then. My thing is that I like all of it, so I don't tend to outsource at all. I just do everything myself. I really like it, you know.
Every step of the way.
Yeah, I like manually packing orders as well. I don't have I mean, that is just a nice relief to go and pack some orders instead of creating something. So it's if you have that kind of mindset, I think you are pretty good, you know. But or outsource it straight away if you absolutely hate it.
I'm with you. Sometimes the monotonous jobs that we have to do are actually kind of it's like a brain massage. I get to take my mind off all the other complicated problems going on.
It grounds you. That's what
totally.
It does. Because I do a lot of production and I do everything by hand. I hand stir my creams. And so I know when I'm getting stressed out and things are and there are too many things happening and I have to do too much, I go and pack things. I do manually put labels on everything. That really works. Like you say, it massages your brain, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. You're an inspiration, Anna Rósa. Really appreciate you coming on the show, as well as the discount. Again, dear listener, that's 30% off the healing power of Icelandic herbs course. That's 65 videos, I want to say, and the profits go to help support Anna Rósa's work in Iraq. So that's just amazing. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here? Any parting words that you'd like to share with the audience?
I don't think. Well, maybe a cliche. How do you say it? Cliche? Something which is often
cliche.
Yes, cliche. Because I was just thinking about it yesterday, and I thought this is such a cliche, but it's so true that we are all in this together. We always are all in this together. And I mean, yes, it so happens that I'm doing this work in Iraq, but you are promoting it in the States, for example. Right. We are all in this together, and there is and we just have to. We have to do it all together. There's no way around it anymore.
Couldn't say it better myself. Perfect way to wrap up the show. Thank you, Anna Rósa, for joining me on the show. Thanks to y'all for listening, and big thanks to Amanda for editing. We'll see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour. Well, thank you so much for having me. Of course. Like I said before, we're going to have to do a round 2. We'll get the updates from Anna Rósa. We'll also maybe dive a little more in your background and your education, because I always love hearing that stuff. So let's get you back on the show at some point. Excellent. And awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, thanks. Bye. Yep. Bye. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.